A lot of people know that these are the flush attachments for putting onto your lower unit to run your engine on a garden hose. But why is it that whenever you use this, sometimes an outboard will not have a telltale coming out of it? And the answer is going to be hose pressure and functionality. But what that really means, let me show you. If we put our flush attachments here onto the engine, slide them over, these are the intakes for the lower unit. So we push this right here, and we're gonna put the water to it. So that's actually pretty good pressure. I mean, I got 55 psi here at this hose, which is really good compared to some other water pressures. Now that we got our hose hooked up, we're going to turn the water on. Water's flowing. You notice that it's flowing out the back and out the front, so that is one issue. But if we start the engine here, notice we got just barely a little bit of a dribble. And sometimes you might not have any water out of there at all. We've actually got a decent stream right now, but sometimes you'll notice that there is no water coming out of there. Part of that issue, let me turn this off and I'll show you. Part of that issue has to do with this. So you see how the water is pouring out this side and out that side? Over here's probably a better example. We got water flowing right out the back of here. Part of the issue could be that your muffs are not getting enough pushing against the lower unit and you're losing all your water out the sides. But the other reason is because of the functionality of the impeller. So let me take the lower unit off and show you exactly what I'm talking about with the functionality of the impeller and this water system here. We are doing a service on this, but I want you to see this. So here are the lower unit water pickups. So water goes into here, right? And underneath this plate, you can see down in there. So that little cavity there is where this water flows. So this comes all the way up. If I get a flashlight, it'll make it easier for you to see. So if I take a flashlight and I shine a light in here, you can see it. So you see that cavity goes straight down. So the water comes in here and it goes straight up and it goes underneath there. Now this plate sits on top of that like this. So there's your water pump plate. The water will all be in here and it has this little hole for it to come up through, and when it gets up into that hole, this is where our impeller is. Let me put the impeller on there so I can further demonstrate. So this is our impeller. Here's our new impeller. You'll notice these vanes, they flip out. So that creates a movement where it's going to push water. You see how these are all bent over? That's just because this one's old. It's been sitting in the housing. It's been ran quite a bit. So that kind of affects the effectiveness of this and how much pressure that it's going to create. But I'm going to slide this down on here and then we're going to talk more about how this moves water. See how you've got these blades that go just around that hole. So the water that's sitting here comes up into there and it fills this little spot. So there's a cap that goes on top of this. Here you go. This is the top of it. And this slides down and sits on top of that. You notice how the impeller vanes are sticking out? They're going to sit inside of this housing in this little cup. So water's going to fill the space. Water's going to fill the space in between these vanes and the top of the cap. Then it's going to, as it spins, move that water around here, and here is the housing that it goes in. So you'll notice that on the back of the housing you have this scoop there. Kind of hard to see this. So you see how it kind of scoops right there from there to there, but where this is positioned, that scoop is going to be on this side of the impeller, and there's where it goes out. So water is going to be moved around here, and when it moves around there, it's going to push it out. That's what builds the pressure and moves the water, and the faster this spins, the more pressure it creates, because it just keeps putting new water. You know, it grabs the water here, it pushes it around, and then it's stuck here. So when it comes back around, it grabs more water, so it's consistently taking more water and pushing the water up. So this does not really create all that much of a vacuum per se, which would suck the water in and then push it up. It basically just creates pressure. Yes, there is a little bit of vacuum, but not as much as you would think. So when we're talking about running this on the hose and you have this sitting on top of it, let me put this all together and we'll put the muffs on here and turn the muffs on so you can see how much water is really in here, what's really going on. Okay, so now we got our muffs on there. We're going to turn our water on. And if you notice something, no water coming out of here. Granted, we know that the impeller has to spin for water to come up there, but even if you spin it, there's no water coming up that. I mean, if you could spin this fast enough, you might be able to get water to come up there, but that's kind of the issue of why it doesn't pee all the time, because sometimes the volume of water and the pressure of the water just is not enough to really prime up this impeller, to get the impeller to really be flowing that water and get that flow of water where it's pushing it up, because it's not really sucking the water like you would think. It is to a point, but not as much as you think it is, which is part of the reason why a lot of these lower units, or not a lot of them, but quite a few of them, will not pee when you put them on the muffs. Okay, see, after spinning it, there we go. Now we got some water coming up. Okay, so very, very difficult. You have to have a lot of water pressure. This thing's wide open in order for us to get. See how the water's coming up? Boom. So it's not as much as you would think is going to flow. Another thing that might stop this engine from having a telltale right here and peeing is this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off because we did have some sand in this engine. I'm going to take that little clip off, pull this up, pull the hose off, and then have it sticking out the side, see if any junk comes out of there that might be blocking anything. See that thing right there? Let's see if I can stick this in here, if anything comes out. Yep, there's a little piece of something in there. Swing. Perfect. So now we're gonna go ahead and start this with this sticking like that, blow out anything else that's in there, and then we'll put this back on. Okay, so that is that. I'm gonna stick this back in there, put the hose back on there, and this thing's actually pees really well on the flush attachment. This one's actually peeing very well on the flush attachment, and it had a bunch of sand and stuff in there. But also, now that you understand the impeller and how all that works, if you got a larger engine and you can't get it to pee, that's probably because of your water pressure and the volume is not enough to fill the block and then get enough to come out the telltale.